Hello, I'm Toby Pickard and this is my India Big Top 5. I've just returned from an epic 8-week trip around India, having flown into Delhi, then gone to Agra, Bharatpur National Park, Jaipur, Ranthambore National Park, Jaipur again, Jodhpur, Jaisalmer, back to Jodhpur, flown to Mumbai, then down to Goa and then on to Kerala. And I want to share with you my top 5 locations that I went to along the way with my camera. Let's start with number 1. Ranthambore National Park. This is the place that first got me interested in visiting India, purely because of its huge wealth of wildlife opportunities. There are leopards, sloth bears, monkeys, deer, bird life, but most importantly, the Bengal tiger, an animal I've always wanted to photograph. This national park is located about 2 hours south of Jaipur in a town called Sawai Madhopur and is well worth a visit. There are 2 options for safari in Ranthambore National Park. One is to go in a jeep, the other is to go into a canter. Now a canter holds 30 people and is a huge truck that is really noisy, and you often get a lot of disruptive guests in the vehicle. Whereas I went in a jeep. Now this is a 6-person vehicle and costs just a little bit more of money, but it means you're a lot more mobile and a lot quieter, so it means you can get a lot closer to the animals without scaring them off. Only 20% of the national park is open to visitors, and this 20% is then split into 10 zones. Now you can't always choose what zones you go on safari in, but if you can, then I'd recommend going to zones 1 to 5. Not only are these the most beautiful parts of the park, but you also have the highest chances of seeing tigers there. What I will say is that safaris in India and elsewhere often require early starts. Now we were getting a safari at 6:30 in the morning, coming back at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then having just a few hours break before going back out again at 2:30 in the afternoon and getting back at 6 o'clock. Now this is purely dependent on the time of year, as it relies on the sunrise and the sunset times, but just a heads up for you. Despite being famous for its tigers, we were super unlucky and we only got to see a glimpse of 1 tiger in the 5 safaris that we did. However, this is really unusual and a lot of people we went with saw tigers in their first safari, often more than once. But funnily enough, we actually saw more leopards than tigers, and look at this photo. Can you spot the leopard? I went on safari in Ranthambore in January, which is one of the best times to go because the undergrowth is sparse but the temperatures are not too high. Any later than that, you increase your chances of seeing tigers because the warmer weather means that the watering holes get smaller and smaller, and so animals are forced to all congregate at one place. However, the temperatures are higher and it's not unheard of for temperatures to reach 50 degrees in Rajasthan, so you don't want to go any later than April. Remember, the national park is only open till June every year and then it shuts until October for the monsoon season. Location number 2, Keola National Park. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, approximately 45 minutes by train outside of Agra. A former duck hunting reserve by the Maharajas, this is now a man-made wetland that is home to over 375 bird species, of which a lot of them are migratory birds. At just 3,000 hectares in size, this reserve is very much able to be explored on by foot, by bicycle or by bicycle rickshaw. I would recommend the latter for your first few hours at least, because your rickshaw driver will be able to show you where the key species can be found within the park. This enabled us to find the spotted owlets and the kingfishers within our first few hours, and this means you can then spend the rest of the day on foot or by bicycle yourselves exploring these areas and going back with your camera. I spent all day exploring the national park, by rickshaw in the morning and by bicycle in the afternoon, and I even got to photograph the common kingfisher, a species I haven't even photographed here in the UK before. We were even lucky enough to see all 3 species of kingfisher that they have in the national park in the same tree at the same time, something that our guide told us was super rare. But by far the best experience we had whilst in the park was photographing the spotted owlets during daylight. These birds, much like little owls in the UK, are the smallest owl species in India, and they were just sat on a tree branch in the middle of the afternoon. Let's go have a look at some of my favourite images from my visit. Next up is location 3, Hampi. This UNESCO World Heritage Site lies 8 hours east of Madgaon, Goa and sits in Karnataka, the province next door. It's formed of over 1,600 remnants of forts, temples and royal complexes that form the capital city of the last great Hindu kingdom. The easiest way to get there is by train, arriving into Hosapete Junction, and from there you can get a bus journey which only takes about half an hour. Hampi itself is situated south of the river, but I found the most exciting parts to explore were actually on the north side of the river, also known as Hippie Island. Whilst exploring the ruins was fun, for me the most exciting part photographically was to explore the north side of the river through the countryside and villages that follow the Tungabandra Canal. You can hire a moped for about 250 rupees, that's £2.50, a day, and you can explore around through all these villages, seeing all the locals and take some time to photograph them. It's also incredibly beautiful, and you can stop off and there are rice paddies, palm trees and huge rock boulders that line the landscape, and it's quite an impressive sight. If you want somewhere for sunset, I'd recommend the Hanuman Temple on the north side of the river. Here you climb up 570 steps up a huge rocky cliff face to reach a temple with views out across the entire boulder fields of Hampi and rice paddies. It's worth it for the views, and there are even monkeys, and you can see a brilliant sunset from up there. Overall, Hampi is a beautiful place and it's got an incredible landscape, but it's also where I took some of my favourite portrait photos from my trip. Let's go have a look at some of my favourite images. Location 4, Kerala. Now, Kerala is a hugely beautiful place and it's also a huge place, so I've narrowed it down to my top 3 locations within Kerala for you to visit. Firstly is Munnar, secondly is Aleppi, and thirdly is Fort Kochi. Firstly, Munnar, situated in the Western Ghats, is home to the tea plantations of Kerala. Here, steep-sided mountains and valleys are lined with tea plantations, and it's an amazing place to walk around. We spent a week here and it was incredibly relaxing, so I'd recommend a visit. Secondly, Aleppi, or Alappuzha, is famous for its backwaters. Here, for about 1,500 rupees, or £15, we went on a sunrise kayak tour where we got to paddle through the backwaters and photograph the local people as they went about their daily business. And we even got to see otters. Just a tip for you, I took one of these with me as I explored Aleppi. It's a dry bag and it meant that when we were on the backwaters I could put all of my camera equipment in here, and it meant if I did fall in, it would keep it safe. Thankfully, I didn't fall in, but it did mean I could still get some incredible portraits of the local people whilst out on the water. Finally, I'd recommend the Chinese fishing nets in Fort Kochi. Here, at sunset, you can see the local fishermen catching fish, which they then go on to supply the local restaurants and cafes with so they can feed their guests. It's an amazingly beautiful place, particularly at sunset, and I got some incredible portraits of the local fishermen as they went about their daily business here too. Location 5, the Thar Desert. The easiest way to access the Thar Desert is to travel 8 hours from Jodhpur to Jaisalmer. From here, you can do a camel safari, and we were the crazy tourists that did the 7 AM safari all the way through to 11 AM the next day. Of course, we weren't on camelback for all of this time, but we did spend a total of about 6 hours on the back of a camel. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but it was incredibly painful by the end, so bear that in mind. We had an amazing time though, and we got to spend our evening sat around a campfire, singing campfire tunes, eating food and drinking beers before camping under the stars without a tent. Definitely worth it, and I'd highly recommend a visit if you can. So, there we have it guys, my big top 5 of India, and certainly not the only top 5 I could have done. There are still plenty of places I'd like to visit, including Udaipur, Varanasi and McLeod Ganj in the Himalayas, all of which have been recommended to us, but we simply did not have enough time. But I hope this video has at least inspired you to start planning your own trip to India soon, because there's certainly a whole host of photography opportunities there for you to explore. I've been Toby Pickard, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out my Instagram account at Toby Pickard Photography, or check out my website for more images, www.tobypickardphotography.co.uk. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.